Welcome to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. My name is Katie Dodd, and I'm a nutrition entrepreneur. I spent 7 years as a side hustler before diving into entrepreneurship full time. Before making the leap, I was bringing in 6 figures through my side hustle. If I can do it, you can too. This podcast is for dietitians, interns, and students who want to be inspired to start or perfect the side hustle of their dreams. Let's do this. Welcome to the 100th episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, celebrating 100 episodes. Oh my goodness, friends, I cannot believe this is the 100th episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. You know, I actually just got done listening to my first ever podcast episode. You could go and, search backwards on I think oldest first on the podcast and go back and listen to episode number 1. And it just cracks me up how much life has changed from little Katie. I mean, it's really not that long ago. I think it was I should know this. It was at the end of 2019 that I launched this podcast. And just to think of how far everything has come. And so the first thing I want to say to you guys listening is thank you. Thank you so much for being a listener. I do see the data. I know how many of you are listening to this podcast, and I just appreciate each and every one of you. And, I appreciate you not just for listening, but I also appreciate because I recently went and I saw some of the reviews I think it was on Apple, and I hadn't gone and looked at these reviews, and I was like, oh my goodness, look at these nice things people are saying. And it just made me feel like, oh my gosh, you guys get me, you see me, you embrace me just the way I am, my imperfect, authentic self. So for that, thank you. But I also want to let you know that I see you guys. I see all of you taking action, pursuing your dreams, pursuing imperfection. And I love it when you guys reach out to me. I would say, gosh, sometimes on a weekly basis, you guys will reach out to me through email, through Instagram, through Facebook. And I love it when you reach out, even just to say hi, even just to say, hey, Katie, I was listening to the podcast. I really, really love it. So feel free to reach out. I love talking to you guys. So I want to let you all know that I see you, I celebrate you, and I thank you. And a special thank you to my students, those of you who have chosen to work with me through my courses, through my programs, through my mastermind. Thank you for believing in me, and more importantly, believing in yourself. I would not be a full-time entrepreneur right now without you guys. So huge thank you. So what do I want to talk about in today's episode? I just want this to be a celebration. I want to talk about, where the podcast started, kind of where it's come from. I want to talk about my favorite episodes and hopefully leave you guys feeling really inspired moving forward. So, when I started the brand Dietitian Side Hustle, I really didn't know what it was going to look like. I had been, in the back of my head wanting to start a podcast for a while, but never put it to action. I worked home care for a long time, which means I spent a lot of time in the car. And I will tell you, I got so bored listening to radio stations. I listened to every radio station. I even listened to those weird ones where the music, it's almost like old country music where it's like ballads. They're telling stories, but it's strange. I was listening to strange stuff. Let's just put it that way, because I was so bored with listening to the same things over and over again. And I will say it took me way too long to find the world of podcasting, but I finally discovered the world of podcasting, and this opened so many doors. I was like, wow, who knew? I don't have to be bored listening to, the same music over and over again, or really weird music because I'm, over the same stuff. And the very first podcast I started listening to was one called Happiness and Progress with Danielle Craig. I recently was on her podcast, which was such a dream and such a privilege with, even just how far my own journey has come. So I started listening to hers, and then I just kind of started listening to other podcasts related to entrepreneurship. And in a lot of ways, my own journey with entrepreneurship was built driving from home to home in my full-time job, just listening to podcasts, soaking it all up. And then, yes, after hours, I would be taking action on what I was learning. Now, one of the podcasts I started listening to was Smart Passive Income with Pat Flynn. And I love Smart Passive Income. And there was an episode I listened to, I feel like it was in November of 2019. And it was called The State of Podcasts in 2020. And I listened to this episode, and pretty much the takeaway was, you need to start a podcast. So I said, okay, Pat Flynn. Within, gosh, it was a short period, like maybe 4 days. Within 4 days, I researched how to create a podcast. I bought a jingle, the little jingle you hear at the beginning of the podcast, recorded an intro, got a microphone, got some recording stuff. It's not super fancy, but I got some stuff to edit my recordings, and my podcast was live within just, maybe 4 or 5 days. It wasn't that long that it went from listening to this podcast saying, you need to start a podcast, to starting my podcast. So the other reason I started it too, it wasn't just because of that episode. I think that episode that I listened to with Smart Passive Income really that put urgency in me. I'm like, okay, now's the time to do it. This random person talking on a podcast is telling me to do it. So obviously I have to. But part of it was because, and I've shared this before, that I love working with students. I love working with dietetic interns. And as I dove into the entrepreneurial world, I found myself so excited as I was telling these students about all these cool things that we could do as dietitians. And as I would tell them these stories, I just found myself getting so excited. Like I would leave work just like buzzing, like, yes, this is so exciting. I need to tell more people. So the podcast is great because I could, like right now I am just sitting in my office, you guys. My kids are in the other room. I'm in an office all by myself. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the office around me. No one's around me, but I know that when I schedule this, it's going to go out and you guys are going to be listening to this episode in your cars, in your home, at the gym, and all of these places. And oh my gosh, how cool that there's this platform where I can speak to so many of you exactly where you're at. So that's kind of why I started the podcast. Part of it was just like, I can have the same conversation with a couple of students, or I can talk into a microphone and reach more people. And I just wanted to share everything I was learning. I will say Dietitian Side Hustle started as a hobby. I never intended to make money off of this brand. It was something I just pursued because I was super passionate about it. And it is this exact brand that allowed me to leave my job. So I just want to share that because sometimes when we start with something we're passionate about and we really focus on serving and helping others, you never know what doors are going to open. And sometimes it could open up amazing opportunities for business, for, dreams that were so big and crazy you didn't even think that they were possible, like where I am right now, living this crazy full-time entrepreneur life. So I mentioned that I just listened to episode 1, and it's so funny looking back. And I made a pact to myself before I started the podcast. And I talked about this in episode 1, that I don't edit this podcast. It is my practice and imperfection. I sometimes struggle with stumbling my words. I'll say the wrong thing. Sometimes I think I said the right thing, and then I'll listen to an episode. I'm like, what did I say? Like, I don't even realize I said the wrong thing. But I'll say the wrong thing. I'll stumble my words. Sometimes if I feel nervous, and you wouldn't think I would feel nervous because I'm like literally talking to the computer by myself. But sometimes when I get nervous, my brain goes blink. And it was those little things about me that made me feel like, man, maybe I'm not a speaker. Maybe I shouldn't be, all those little lies in my head were saying, like, who do you think you are to be a podcaster, to do all of these things? And so when I started the podcast, I made a commitment to be myself, to be my imperfect self, because I think the more we are able to see others being imperfect, and we realize like I've never heard any of you guys say, like, Katie, you stumbled your words. You should have edited that out. I'm going to unsubscribe. Y'all have never said that. You guys have been so kind. And I think it also gives others permission of like, it's okay if I mess up too. We are human. And it's really about, like with this podcast, it's not about perfection. It's about helping you guys and serving you guys and hopefully inspiring you guys and giving you guys new ideas. And, that shines way beyond any little stumble I make in my words. So anyways, I committed to that early on. And I will say I have stuck to that. I very seldom have edited this podcast. When I do edit it, couple of reasons. Sometimes, like, if I say the wrong year or the wrong date, if like an event's coming up and I say the wrong date, which I've done, I'll have to go back and edit it. Sometimes I end up reordering. So I'll change that, like the number. And sometimes I don't know, I'm not a good editor. So you guys might notice it when it's like, welcome to the 10th episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. And it sounds super awkward because I'm not a good editor, but done is better than perfect. So I have committed to, this practice and imperfection and not editing my podcasts, because these are really meant to be a conversation and they're not supposed to be perfect. Right. So when I listened to that episode, I was like, okay, awesome. I've stuck to that. Also listening to the episode, I mentioned that my son was 8 and my daughter was 4, which blows my mind because my son's now 11 and my daughter is 7. And holy cow, like, where did the time go? When I started this podcast, I was doing episodes every other week. And part of that was because I was working full time and I just didn't want to commit to a weekly podcast. When I invested in a high-level mastermind about a year ago, I realized, man, this podcast is a great way to reach lots of people. I really should be doing this weekly. At that point, I bumped it up to once per week, and I've continued doing once per week for podcast episodes. Every once in a while, life gets crazy and I don't publish one right on time, but then I usually catch up. So also, even with the numbering of my podcast, a lot of what I did was copying Pat Flynn and Smart Passive Income. Well, kind of copying Pat Flynn, but then also Brandon Gailey with the Blogging Millionaire. He had these short podcast episodes that were very actionable. I'm like, I want to do that. I like the short episode. So my podcast was really modeled off of those two and how I do things. But Pat Flynn, he modeled his by having like 3 numbers. So at the beginning of every episode, if you ever like see the images, it says like DSH 009 012. And I made 3 digits because I knew someday I was going to be in the hundreds for episodes. I feel like it took me a while to get here, but I'm just so excited now to like not start with number 0, to have like 100, which is exciting, but in the weeds, and probably no one notices or even cares about that. But that's how the podcast got started. So let me talk about some of my favorite episodes. I have actually on my CV, which is like my big old long extended version of a resume. I do have all of my podcast episodes listed. So I went back and I was looking through like, oh yeah, these are totally some of my favorites. And I'm just listing ones where I was speaking by myself, because I have ones where it's like, today I'm just talking to you guys. Sometimes I bring in guests and interview them. And honestly, every single episode where I'm interviewing a guest, I'm obsessed with and love. And I'm like, I'm going to be listing a ton of episodes if I do that to you guys. Like pretty much every time I interview someone, I'm so inspired by humans, dietitians, entrepreneurs. And when I speak to them, I'm just like so in awe of them and what they do. And so appreciative that they're bringing value to the podcast. So just know that every interview I do is among one of my faves. But looking back at some of the favorite episodes that I've done myself, I would say obviously episode number 1, Welcome to the Dietitian Side Hustle, just because it's so fun to look back at like, man, that was the first time I ever recorded a podcast episode. Here I am 100 episodes later. I liked episode number 23. It's called 10 Random Things About Me. And I just shared some super random stuff about me. And I think what I liked about that episode, it was an opportunity for me to be my authentic self. But how many of you reached out to me after I did that episode who were like, oh yeah, me too, or oh yeah, okay, yes. So it was really cool to kind of get that feedback from everyone. Episode 28, I'm in Making It to Mediavine. That was huge for me. Mediavine is an ad network, and that's when I really was able to start making good money through my blog. With blogging, it's a long-term game. You put a lot of time in and you're not making money in the beginning. And then you hit that tipping point where you're making lots of money. And so for me, meeting that goal, which I knew was possible, but in the journey felt impossible. Like, it was so fun to be able to be there and share that with you guys. Episode number 68, I quit my job. That was an episode I never thought that I would record, but it happened. Holy cow. Episode 78, I Can't Dance. That was an episode that started this journey where I learned how to dance and dance on stage in a hip hop squad. A really fun, amazing journey, really stretching and testing my mindset. And then another one I actually really loved was episode 88, Why I'm No Longer a Freelance Writer. And I liked that one because I was able to kind of share some information and numbers and kind of describe some of the differences between being more of a contractor working for other people versus working for your own brand. And so I really enjoyed that episode, being able to share that perspective. And so those are some of my favorite episodes. If you want to go back and listen, episodes 1, 23, 28, 68, 78, 88. There's a theme. So before we wrap it up, I do want to share with you guys, hopefully just some inspiration, some positive words. I've said thank you, and I'm probably going to say thank you a few more 1,000 times before we end this episode. But I just really want to provide encouragement that when it comes to Dietitian Side Hustle and this community that we're building through the podcast, through the Facebook community, through Instagram, through the email list, through the programs that I've built, I know that all of you work with me in different ways. If you're listening to this podcast, technically you're one of my students, right? Like you are learning from me. I'm here to support and to serve you. And like I said, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. But we really are all in this together. We're all on this journey together. And regardless of where you are, whether or not you're a dietitian, an NDTR, a student, another healthcare professional, just someone who randomly found this podcast and you keep listening, you're welcome here. Everyone belongs regardless of what you do. And my brain just went blank, but there was something I wanted to say. Oh, yes. I also wanted to say that, if you are someone and all you want to do is have a side hustle, that's okay, and you're welcome here. If you're someone who you want to start a side hustle to leave your full-time job and be a full-time entrepreneur, you are welcome here. I think so often in the entrepreneurial space, we hear this, like, you have to have, and I talk about big, crazy, audacious goals, but your big, crazy, audacious goals might not be leaving your job, and that is okay. I think sometimes in the entrepreneurial world, the thought is like everyone's goal is to be an entrepreneur. Everyone's goal is to leave their full-time job. And if it's not, you just don't believe in yourself enough. And I don't believe that at all. And I don't think that at all. I didn't think I was going to leave my job, and here I am. But I do know a lot of you listening, you just want a side hustle to do something you're passionate about. You just want to make a couple extra bucks. You just want to, it's your hobby, whatever. But you have no intention of becoming a full-time entrepreneur. And that is okay. You are perfectly welcome here. And then also for the full-time entrepreneurs or those of you who desperately want to leave your job, you're welcome too. And we are all in this together. Next, I just really want to encourage each and every one of you listening to dream big, to not be afraid to speak into the world those big, crazy, audacious dreams that you have in your head and your heart. I've said it before, I'm going to say it many, many times, that I believe each and every one of you has a dream in your heart, an idea in your head, that if we could just break down those limiting beliefs and help you to do the thing, the world would be radically changed by those ideas that are living inside of you right now. We just gotta get those ideas out. We just got to move you to action. So whatever your dreams are, they can come true. It could take some time. It will take work. It could take pivoting. It could take twisting, but everything you want to do is completely possible. I was I was on my Peloton a couple days ago, and one of the coaches was talking about it's you against you. You against you. And I will say in my own entrepreneurial journey, that is true. It's you against you, meaning it's your mindset. It's that conversation in your head. It's that battle in your head. It's your voice that says, that's too hard. You can't possibly do that. Who do you think you are? They could do it, but you can't. You can do it. You need to surround yourself with people who are going to help you drown out those voices and work on changing your mindset. But whatever you want to do, you 1,000% can do it. And I do think that a lot of you have these big, crazy dreams that you are too scared to speak into the world. Maybe you do want to leave your job, but you're too scared to say it out loud. Maybe you want to become a millionaire dietitian and you're thinking like, who do I think I am to say that? People are going to think I'm greedy. Be who you are. If others can't embrace you, they really don't deserve a place in your life. I said it. Okay, so next I want to talk about an abundance mindset. This is something that I'm a big, big fan of because, I'm a big fan of collaboration over competition. There are a lot of dietitians out there and a lot of you are in similar niches, and that's okay. There's only one of you, right? If someone else in your niche or someone else in your space wins, that doesn't mean a loss for you. It's not like a pie where, their win means less of the pie, right? They took a slice of the pie that could have been for you. That's not how the game works. How the game works is that when more of you are doing the thing, the pie just gets bigger. You guys all get your part. You guys probably even get more because there is room for everyone. And I want to encourage each and every one of you listening to have an abundance mindset. That is not something that a lot of us are taught. And that's not something I often see in the online world. I see a lot of scarcity thinking, but have an abundance mindset and recognize there is only one you. No one else can be you. My business coach is a wonderful model for this. He actually will say, like, especially because we're kind of similar in what we're doing because I'm a business coach too. He'll be like, Katie, just take what I do and do that. And, I see in so many other circles where people are like, oh no, don't copy me. Don't do that. But my business coach is literally like, here, take this exact model and do that. And the reason he says that, he recognizes that I can teach the exact same stuff he teaches. I can do exactly what he does. I will never be Greg Todd. he has that going for him, right? Same thing with me. There's only one Katie Dodd, and someone else can do exactly what I do, but they're not me. And I am so grateful that there's so many people in the coaching space because we all resonate with different types of humans, right? And we all specialize in different things. And I think it's wonderful and lovely that there's opportunities for everyone to, have their place, connect with their human, connect with their person. So keep an abundance mindset. The next thing I want to encourage you guys with is to keep going. I have a journal I write in every day. It's a planner. It's the Get Time Planner. My business coach, Greg Todd, makes it. And in it, I write a message to myself every day. And I can't tell you how many times the message I write myself is keep going. It's a message I tell myself and a message I just really want to pass on to you. Life is this journey of ups and downs. I don't know if you've ever heard the quote, disruption follows intention. Oftentimes, when we start doing something big and amazing, all of a sudden, things start falling apart and we're like, what is going on? But disruption does follow intention, and we just have to keep going. Sometimes keeping going looks like baby steps. Sometimes keeping going looks like you moved your toe forward a smidge, but that's okay, because you're moving forward, especially for side hustlers who have full-time jobs, often have families, have other things they're doing. Just keep going, recognizing that tiny steps over time equal miles, right? So whatever you're doing, just keep going. I want you guys to embrace done is better than perfect. If anything, I would wish for each and every one of you listening is to really let go of perfectionism, be mindful of it and where it creeps up in your life, and just go out there and do the thing. You don't have to learn everything before you start. You don't have to have X number of years of experience to start. You don't have to have X credential to start. You just have to start, become the person. You will learn, you will get better. You will do the thing along the way. So embrace done is better than perfect, because perfectionism holds you back. It's perfectionism paralysis. Maybe I'm saying that wrong, but it holds you back. And that's what I see a lot in dietitian side hustlers, is that perfectionism has put its hands on you and it is not letting go. And you just feel so overwhelmed that you can't move forward because it's not going to be perfect. Or what if you mess up? What if you fail? What if some judgy person comes out of the woodwork and judges you? What if you don't know the answer to this? What if, right? Well, I could tell you, if you never start, you'll never know. So embrace done is better than perfect. And I got to tell you guys, failure is an amazing teacher. The more you can embrace failure and recognize it's part of the journey, be okay with it, the more success you're going to have. The next thing I really want to emphasize is community. We become like those we surround ourselves with. Now, I'm very proud of the community that we have built with Dietitian Side Hustle. It is a positive space. It is a collaborative space. It is a uplifting space. And I'm very, very proud of that. And I want to encourage each and every one of you to surround yourself with community who builds you up. Who helps you to remove those limiting beliefs you have in your mind, someone who believes in you enough until you start to catch up and believe in yourself as well. And, what that looks like for you can vary. That might be people in your circle, like, so much of what we do is online. So I'm like, in your real life circle with real humans, and not that online's not real, but with your immediate humans, right? So a good community that you're surrounding yourself with. Maybe it's joining a program, maybe a mastermind, maybe getting a business coach, surrounding yourself with people who are going to help you achieve whatever dreams that you really want to achieve. And with that, I feel like I keep saying, like, done is better than perfect. This is over that. But also really emphasizing curiosity over judgment. And I just say this because I do see a lot of judgment online within our profession. And it's not just our profession, guys. It's every profession. It's humans. It's kind of what sometimes it's what people do, right? They can get all judgy. And so I would just encourage each and every one of you listening, if you ever catch yourself feeling judgmental over another dietitian, instead of defaulting to judgment, just kind of take a stop. Look at kind of those emotions and don't judge yourself, right? Like, oh shoot, I'm judging myself for being judgmental, but just have curiosity. Have curiosity about maybe why you're feeling that way. Oftentimes when we judge others, it's usually a reflection of what's going on inside us. So just taking time to reflect and have curiosity about that, and just work on removing any judgment and just really building up and uplifting other dietitians, even if they think differently than you, even if they do things differently than you, recognizing, again, abundance mindset, there's enough for everyone. We need lots of different types of people to connect with different types of people because there are so many people out there in the world who need their lives changed by registered dietitian nutritionists. So, this is a longer episode than I thought. I thought this was going to be 15 minutes, but I'm looking at my time. We're like at 25 minutes. But those are the things I just really wanted to share with you. These were just some things on my heart. I hope that what I shared with you kind of resonated. I hope that it left you feeling kind of inspired, kind of excited. And as I wrap up this episode, again, I just want to say thank you guys so much for being with me on this journey. For those of you who have listened to all 100 episodes, I know you guys are out there. For those of you who just, listen to a sprinkle here and there, I appreciate each and every one of you so much. Thank you so much for coming with me on this journey. I cannot wait for the next 100 episodes, and definitely reach out. I'm on Instagram at Dietitian Side Hustle, Katie Piercy Dodd on Facebook. My email is katiedoddnutrition@gmail.com. Go to my website, dietitiansidehustle.com. All my ways to reach out to me are there. But I would love to hear from you guys and tell you thank you one-on-one. So have such an amazing day. Thanks for listening to the 100th episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to learn more about how we can work together, go ahead and go to www.katiedodd.com to learn about all of the ways that we can work together.